Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Sisters Hour. I hope everyone is well. Um, Welcome back to Sisters Hour. Please do let us know where you're tuning in from. Inshallah, we will be starting the episode in a couple more minutes. So we'll just wait for a few more people to join and then we can kickstart it off. Um, Before we do, just want to wish everybody a happy new year. It's my first time back on Sisters Hour, and it's great to be back and great to talk about this month's theme, which is mental health awareness and Islam. We have a very exciting guest, Dr. Nadia Sadiq, who is a counselling psychologist, and we will be talking about debunking myths about mental health and Islam. As always, please do comment along. Please do ask any questions that you have, and inshallah, we'll be answering them at the end. As you know, Sisters Hour is part of the Sufa Education Foundation, and it's a charity that provides religious, social, and educational service to the Malay community in the UK and worldwide. All our programs are online. You can check out our Facebook, our Instagram, check out our website, and as always, please do donate. Anything that you give will be much appreciated, and will go back to the running of the charity and all their fantastic programs. For this month, the SOFA Educational Foundation has just released their 2021 calendar, and it's really beautiful, really nice and compact. So we do encourage everybody to grab it, to buy it, and put it in their house and use it. It is £15, and all proceeds will go back to the charity, inshallah. With me today, as I said, is Dr. Nadia Sadiq, and she is an amazing woman. She just graduated as a counselling psychologist. She received her doctorate in 2019. Now she's held many roles, such as well-being therapist, a psychologist, and now a counselling psychologist. She works both in the public and private care, and most of them are Muslim women, and she deals with kind of bringing to light mental health awareness, especially in the Muslim community. Inshallah, I will now include her in.
Hey,
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum. Walaikum salam. How are you, Sarah?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well. How are you, Dr. Nadia?
Yeah, Alhamdulillah, really good. I'm excited to be here today.
Thank you. We're excited to have you as well. Welcome to Sisters Hour.
Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. And when we were planning this month, mental health awareness and Islam, we were planning the theme. One of the things we wanted to do was to debunk the common myths and the misconception around mental health and Islam, because I think you may agree that there's a lot of stigma around mental health in the Muslim community. And we just wanted to kind of start fresh. We wanted 2021 to be the year that we all look at mental health in a different light.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, and it is. You're right. There is a huge stigma around mental health, especially in our communities and our cultures, and that's a really good intention to have for 2021. I think with everything obviously that's been happening over the last year with the pandemic and virus and so much uncertainty, I'm sure people are a lot more aware of their own mental health as well during these times, because it's been such a, I don't even know how to describe it, but stressful and uncertain kind of year. So I think it's really good to have that intention and bring more awareness to people about mental health and things that they can look out for, the things that they can check in with themselves. And yeah, we'll be going into a lot of that. So.
Yes, and I think you were right when you said that one of the kind of blessings of the pandemic was just bringing light to mental health awareness. And one of the biggest misconceptions that we have as a community is that mental health is a direct cause, or low faith, sorry, when we're feeling low, when you have low faith, it's a direct cause of mental health. But that's not true. But can you explain what the difference is between feeling low in your faith, feeling low in your iman, and mental health issues and kind of struggling with that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge misconception. I think some of it comes from the lack of education, I guess, that we have around it. But the two are completely they're different, they're completely different, but not completely separate. So where the common misconception, I guess, is to link the two in a way that suggests that our a lack of faith or low faith contributes to mental health issues. I actually would question what the basis of that is. I think there is a lot of research out there, and this is research that I've done myself as well, as part of my training, that actually shows the opposite to be more true. That, so for example, when we are going through mental health difficulties, that's actually what can impact our faith. So, I mean, we do have to question, okay, what does low faith look like? Because it will be different. I mean, different people have different levels of practice, like what they practice, how much they feel connected to faith as well. So these are also markers that people would need to look out for themselves. So if someone, for example, knows that they're praying 5 times a day, they're maybe doing extra fasts, maybe on the sunnah days, or but then they notice that actually they're finding it more difficult, they're struggling a bit more to do those things, then for that person, that would be an indication, maybe, okay, maybe something's going on. What is the difficulty that's around for me? But there might be somebody else who maybe it's something a bit more internal that they feel that they're losing. So maybe they're still doing their prayers, but they might feel that they're not feeling as connected to God. Maybe they're not having as much conviction in their du'as when they're supplicating. So I guess the way that our emotions impact our faith, the way that our mental health impacts our faith, it will look different for everyone. But I would say it's more feasible to say that mental health issues impact on our faith as opposed to low faith impacting our mental health. And of course, faith is hugely beneficial in a lot of ways to our mental health. And there's so many things within Islam that we're taught that are actually preventative measures. So there's certain things that are in place, even the structure of the prayers, for example, that actually there's a certain clock, I guess, that we're following in our day. There's a structure that we have to our day. And actually, when we look at people who are feeling depressed, one of the first things, or one of the biggest indicators, is that they don't have a routine. They don't have any structure that they're following. So there's so many things like that within Islam that I feel that Islam is very holistic. We know there's so many benefits to things, and even more than we have knowledge about as well. So those are some things, I guess, that we can look out for. But I guess we have to also keep in mind that you have people who don't necessarily have a faith. They might not, they won't describe themselves as religious, but those people can still be happy and they still live fulfilling lives. They still enjoy themselves. But you also have people with no faith who are struggling as well. So similarly with people who, I guess, identify as Muslims or are following Islam, there will be some people who are following the religion and they have a faith and they're fine, they're happy. But there will be some people who they're following the faith, but they're struggling. So you can be struggling and be happy whether you have a faith or not. But there are things within our emotional and psychological kind of spheres that will impact our faith. Something I have noticed as well, that actually when people who have a strong faith generally, like if I think of some of my clients who are practicing, sometimes what can happen is that, they notice that they've stopped doing certain things. And when they're feeling, I guess, better within themselves, they start reconnecting again with certain parts of their faith. Or it could be that they stop doing certain things, but once they pick them up again, so for example, with the prayers, if somebody maybe because they're feeling really down, maybe they're feeling quite low, they don't have energy, they're struggling to feel motivated, these are all symptoms of depression, that person will also find it difficult to do their prayers, because when we don't have energy, other things can be hard as well, not just our prayers. And sometimes then with that person reintroducing prayers, it can make them feel better because they're reconnecting to the things that they had stopped, but they also may be finding a bit of oh wait, actually this wasn't as hard as I thought, or okay, actually, yeah, I did that today, even if that was the only thing I did, and that's something for them to feel good about.
I love the reminder that you gave about the structure of prayers. We have 5 prayers throughout the day, in the morning, in the afternoon, late afternoon, evening, and at night. And I can imagine, when you're feeling low and you're depressed and you stop praying, but when you reconnect back to it and you just take a moment to pause and reflect on the power of the structure, just kind of reconnecting back to God and how that can change your mindset and kind of your mental health. I thought that was really beautiful, and I love the way that you said that. Actually, it's kind of, there's not low faith contributes to mental health, but mental health can almost affect your relationship and your faith, and the spectrum that it's on. Um, One of the things that I wanted to talk about in this episode is spiritual bypass. Now, this is something that I'm guilty of, so many of us are guilty of. When we're trying to help someone who is feeling a bit low, we kind of carelessly say things and provide advice that aren't that helpful. And we try to provide almost faith-based advice. So we say, oh, you're not praying enough. That's why you're feeling sad. Or you should, do your sunnah prayers, and it'll make it all feel better.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this is, it's termed as spiritual bypass. Can you kind of explain that a bit more? Maybe better than me, actually.
Well, I think you did explain it well, and that's like real life examples as well, because like you said, we are all guilty of it, and sometimes it can come from a well-meaning place, but it's often not the most helpful thing. So spiritual bypassing. So this was a term coined by a therapist who was also a Buddhist in like the early 1980s. And what he saw was within the Buddhist community that there were all these people who were they were practicing their faith. They had really strong kind of faith-based values, and were all on this path of kind of being spiritual cleansing and enlightenment and things. But there was something happening that I guess, he then used the term spiritual bypassing for this, where actually people were using their faith as a way to kind of override some of the difficulties that were around. So it's really something, it's like a tendency to avoid or repress or kind of deny our emotional and psychological issues by using spiritual ideas and practices and teachings. So in our kind of Muslim communities, there will be certain ideas, beliefs, and teachings from Islam that we use to move around our discomfort. And I guess sometimes you might think, okay, what's wrong with that? You're using religion, you're using your faith to kind of to be okay. But there's a difference in using your faith to, like, while still processing your emotions, and using faith to completely bypass your emotions. So, I mean, it's sort of like, I guess you might be invalidating your feelings or somebody else's feelings. It can sometimes be a bit of a distraction from what really needs our attention. And it becomes it becomes a kind of defense mechanism, I guess, against the things that we're struggling with.
I think you're right in saying that sometimes we as listeners are uncomfortable and we don't know how to approach the subject. So what we do is that we try to avoid it altogether. We just go around it. We just, pass on some advice, and hopefully that will catch on, and we don't have to get into the nitty-gritty or the deep part of the conversation. From your side, and I have a few as well in my mind, but what are the common spiritual bypass that you often hear, that you often come across? I mean, what are your top 5s?
Yeah, gosh. I would say, okay, there's one that everything happens for a reason.
Yes, that's a good one. Yep.
And another one is this is God's plan, or this was meant to be, like this is what was written for me. And I see that a lot. I'm not sure what it's like in the kind of Malaysian community, but in the Pakistani community, that's a huge one. That it was meant to be. This is what was written. And I know sometimes it's not said in a dismissive. I mean, it's not intended to be dismissive, but it can be. Some of the other ones are things like don't be angry, don't be sad, or you should be grateful, or maybe you should just pray a bit more. I think that's 5.
Yes. The one that you said, the first one, is like, this is Allah's plan. And I think we come across like, just accept it, just force yourself to accept the situation, you know, whatever experiences that you've had, whether emotional, physical, mental experiences, just don't think about it, but just accept the whole situation as it is. And I think when you give these advice, when you approach mental health in this way, actually it carries a lot of negative and harmful impact on a person's faith. They're coming to you from a very vulnerable place, and sometimes all we can say is, oh, just accept it and move on.
Yeah. And I think what you mentioned there as well about it's kind of like a detachment. Like, it's as if we're detached from our emotions. Like, oh no, we shouldn't be feeling like angry, or we shouldn't like. And that is actually a sign. That's a sign of spiritual bypassing, where there is that kind of being too detached from things, and also being quite idealistic and avoiding conflict are also some of the ways that we can see whether we're engaging in spiritual bypassing as well. And I guess trying to be positive all the time as well, and pretending that we're okay when we're not. Like, these are huge things that, I mean, we, like I said, we all do them. I know I do them with myself as well sometimes. But as if we can be aware of what it is and what we're doing, like, it's a huge step in kind of overcoming that.
Just being kind of aware of our emotions. I think that's a great first step, isn't it? The next question I have, and I want to kind of talk about, is how do we reconstruct our thought process to use faith in as one of our tools and as as a way to help our mental health? How do we reconstruct our conversations from this is Allah's plan, so just accept and move on, to actually, there is loving God and there's a purpose for you. There's a reason why you feel like this. How can we kind of mind frame?
And even that's a really good question, because there are things, like really small things that we could do, that changes that we could make, which I will mention. But with what you were saying, I think even when you were the 2 different phrases that you said, like, oh, just pray, or just, like, you'll be okay, and then comparing that with, like, oh, actually maybe being more loving and kind, like, it's very different. Like, one feels a lot more avoidant and dismissive, and the other is a lot more open and kind and curious. And I think sometimes we can be quite fearful as well of what's there, and we might not know what to say or how to say it, but just simple things. I think when we can become comfortable ourselves with our emotions, we can also then meet people where they are with their emotions as well. So I think, it's a bit of a kind of parallel process, like a bit of a mirror. Like, if we find it hard to sit with emotions or to acknowledge difficult emotions, we'll also be the same towards somebody else who's maybe showing difficult emotions as well. So, I mean, asking things, okay, what am I feeling? Just naming emotions, or asking the other person as well. And I struggle with this myself. I mean, it can be really hard to name our emotions, especially if we're not used to it, or like there's so much going on and we're not really sure. But it's okay. Like, it's okay to take time. And I think having questions that can foster that openness. So, okay, I noticed that you've been really quiet lately. Like, is everything okay? Or like, I noticed that you were upset about things. Do you want to talk about it? Just these little things that allow people to be open, because it's not coming from a place of judgment. It's coming from a place of acceptance. And I think that's huge in being able to connect emotionally with ourselves and with other people as well.
I love the way you said, we shouldn't come from a place of judgment, but come from a place of openness. I think there's a tendency just to kind of to provide like spiritual judgment, to give that. Actually, the best thing to do is just have a nice, open, loving conversation, just to understand someone a bit better.
Yeah, and it's something that we underestimate. I think there's so much power and so much healing in just being with another person, even if they're, especially I guess when they're in pain. Because I mean, what none of us want is to be alone, isolated, and abandoned with the pain that we have. So I mean, this is also why like how therapy can be really beneficial as well, because you're sitting with someone who is allowing you to experience your emotions, and they're not judging you for it. They're not telling you shouldn't be feeling like that, but instead they're creating that warm, kind of nurturing, non-judgmental space to be open. And yeah, so much healing comes from that. And it's something we can do in friendship groups as well. I mean, if we notice that maybe I can be a little bit more compassionate, or maybe I can be a little bit more sensitive to this person's struggles, that's it's a good place to start.
And I think that can be a goal for all of us, just to be more compassionate, open friends who listen to one another. I mean, going back to one of the biggest spiritual bypass that we have, which is, like you said, just accept it. It's part of Allah's plan. How can we reconstruct that in a more loving and compassionate way?
Yeah, that's a good question, I think. And for me, that it brings up like, okay, we have these two kind of realities. So we have our beliefs and ideas that come from faith. That okay, we do believe that God has planned our lives. That there are certain things that, well, I guess everything that happens in a way that's what was planned for us. So we have that belief, but that's like I guess what we would call an absolute belief. So it's quite concrete. We all believe that. But then we also have, I guess, more, I guess, a kind of relative reality of things. So that reality is our kind of subjective. It's what's unique to each of us. So yeah, we all have this absolute reality where we believe that God has decreed this for me, or this is what my life was supposed to look like. But within that, we each of us experience things subjectively, on the kind of relative reality where, yeah, my experience to, I don't know, some like a friend losing a friend, for example, whether that's kind of just drifting apart or grief, like my experience will be different to somebody else's, even though it's a similar situation. Like all of our realities are quite different. So it's really important for us to be sensitive to that, and know that, yeah, these things do happen, and we can still acknowledge it and explore it and talk about it, whilst still believing that it was meant to be as well.
Yeah, and just kind of accepting it in your own time and coming to terms with it, with your own emotional experiences and what
Um,
you've gone through. Um,
yeah,
in mental health, when talking about mental health and Islam, there is a tendency, and unfortunately, and I know I'm guilty of this, where we put a lot of blame on Allah. Like, why did you do this? Why me? Why couldn't this happen to someone else? You
mm,
know, and this is really harmful, because we're stating that Allah is not merciful, he's not just, that he's being unfair, like actually he's just picking on me. When we're down, and when we're going through dark periods in our lives, how should we perceive Allah in a way that's comforting, in a way that is kind of inspirational and loving?
mm, yeah, yeah. I feel like that can sometimes be part of a person's process. Like if we think about the different relationships that we have in life, so okay, we have a relationship with our parents, with our siblings, with our friends, with ourselves, but also with God. And if we believe certain things about God, like okay, yeah, he did put this on my path, or he did give me this test to go through, and like that's something that it's outside of our control, and we might not know what the reasons are for it, and in that moment we don't have to either. Like it's okay for us to acknowledge how we're feeling towards God, and I think it's a healthy thing to do, even though I think it's something that people might be quite fearful of, or quite, they might feel like they're doing something wrong by questioning God. But some of this, it is a natural part, whether it's anger or sadness or grief or I guess other kind of ill feelings that we might have. Like the fact that those feelings are there means that they need to be looked at. And once we do that, we can allow ourselves to move through it as well. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've seen those, though you get those Chinese finger traps. It's so
Yeah.
you put your fingers in and then, yeah. So with our emotions and anything that we're maybe struggling with, like, okay, if we imagine that we're stuck in that kind of that trap, and the more we try and pull away, the more we try and think, oh no, I shouldn't be feeling this, or wait, like we spiritual bypassing, and the more difficult it is to loosen up and to move through, and like our fingers will stay stuck. And the way that trap becomes looser is actually when we put our fingers together, it loosens the structure, and then we're free. Like we've gotten out of it. And this also reminds me of a quote by a psychologist called Carl Jung, who said that what we resist persists. So anything that we are resisting, whether it's a situation, a responsibility, or an emotion, as long as we're resisting it, it's going to be there. It's still going to be there.
One of the things that I take away from this episode is acknowledging how you feel and just saying, okay, I feel like this, and how do I take this, the first steps to not feel like this? If I can say so, almost like, okay, I feel really angry about the situation, but what can I do to make it better? And I think us, we're shy in kind of reconstructing our thought process, especially when it comes to Allah. Like sometimes there's a tendency to hold it on, but actually when we look at it and say, okay, I feel like this, but actually I can feel better.
Yeah, and it's okay if sometimes we feel sad for an hour or a day, or like it's okay. Like we don't want to kind of stop ourselves from feeling our emotions. Like obviously we want to feel better and we want to feel okay, but part of that is by allowing ourselves to feel those, what we might call negative or difficult emotions first. Like we have to feel them first to be okay. And there's probably instances, I mean, in your life and other people who are watching, that actually you realize that, oh wait, when this issue was going on and I didn't address it, I didn't talk about it, it stayed around a lot longer. And then actually once I acknowledged it or I addressed it, I was okay.
Do you know, just to share my own personal experience, yesterday, something really trivial. I wanted to write an Instagram story for this episode. I wanted to advertise it out, and I couldn't find the words to do it. I tried so many times, and I got so angry, and I was tired. And at the end, I told my husband, I was like, I'm really angry. I'm angry. I couldn't like put my words out on Instagram. Like I couldn't post it.
I wish you spoke to me.
And I acknowledged it, and then I went to sleep. I woke up, and I was like, I feel better now.
Oh, wow.
It's gone past. That was a difficult moment. I'm just gonna do what I can and try my best.
Yeah.
Letting go of my negative emotion. Just
Yeah.
a sharing session.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that, because there is, I mean, these things happen on a day-to-day basis, and it's in those moments as well that we can do something different, like you did, and you talked about it, you slept on it, and then you were okay.
That's how I process things sometimes. And kind of, what practical advice would you give from your own experience, from your own expertise, to those who are living and struggling with mental health issues, and their faith as well? They're struggling with mental health and their relationship with Allah, and kind of preserving their worship. What advice would you give?
Yeah, I guess I would firstly just to acknowledge that if people who have a person is in that position, that it is really hard. It's a really, really difficult place to be, but not to feel guilty about it. I know it's easy to say that, it's difficult to do, but just knowing that it's not something you have to feel guilty about, and just validating it for yourself, kind of having that self-acceptance, that non-judgmental attitude towards yourself for what you're going through. And I know we I guess before the episode started, we kind of touched in our chat about the stigma that's around as well with mental health, and unfortunately it is there, and that can make it difficult to seek support and to acknowledge the difficulties that we have. But I would also say, like, encourage people to seek support from professionals as well, because I mean, like I said earlier on about therapy, like, it's a space for you to discuss, air, and talk about, process anything that you're finding difficult. And it's an ideal space to start learning how to be more comfortable with emotions and talking about emotions as well. If we don't have that already in our friends and family, I think it's a resource that we can use. So kind of either speaking to friends, getting professional support. It's very important to have people that you trust. So that could be the professional. It could be maybe you've just got one person that you know I can trust fully. That trust in relationships is really important when it comes to these things. Another couple of things I would say is being more comfortable just sitting with yourself and noticing, okay, what am I feeling? What is it that I'm struggling with? Like, where do I feel it in my body? Like, when have I felt this before? And trying to just understand yourself and make sense of it. And you could do that just by reflecting, or by writing as well. So I'm a huge fan of journaling, and like I do journaling a lot. I've actually got a online course that's coming out on this as well. Sorry, just to plug myself there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but it's an introduction to journaling. So I talk about the benefits and things a bit more, and how to do it as well, because sometimes when we write things down, it's a way of expression. So where we've talked about spiritual bypassing, for example, being quite repressing, and some of the stigma and beliefs within our communities can be quite suppressing as well. So journaling is the opposite of that. It's you're allowing yourself to be expressive, and you can keep it completely private as well. But there are certain ways to do that, so it's more helpful because you don't want to get lost in like a lot of overwhelm at the same time.
I'm excited to join. I one of my kind of goals this year was to start journaling, especially with my relationship with faith. So inshallah, you'll see me. I'll be one of the students. But kind of going back to your tips, you know, one of the things that I think we can all try to do this year and hopefully continue is just be mindful of the way we feel, kind of stopping and pausing and kind of reflecting. And like you said, just accepting it, and finding someone who you can talk about, whether it's your friend or if it's a professional. I think those are really incredible advice, and it's easy to take on. Like, we can implement it almost straight away. And I know there are a lot of apps out there that we can use to help us.
Yeah. So there's one of the most popular ones, I think, is Headspace.
That's the one, yes.
But there's also another one that's come out that's specifically targeted towards Muslims. So there's a lot of Islamic kind of meditations, and I've actually done a meditation for that as well. So you'll probably be able to hear my it's the 7 days of healing meditation. But that's
sorry,
Sabr.
Sabr, okay.
So
okay,
yeah,
so everyone has to download Headspace and Sabr.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really good places to start as well, and it's easier to do it when like you're being guided through it as well, and both of those apps are really good at that.
Inshallah, I will be downloading them as well. I've heard great reviews about Headspace, so but I'm excited to try Sabr. We do have some questions that's come in. One of them is, how does meditation help us manage our mental health? Guided meditation as well?
Yeah, well, I think that could be a huge topic in itself. Yeah, meditation, it really helps with, I guess if I could kind of say it in a nutshell, it helps us to just, again, start noticing. It helps us to become more observant of what's going on for us. And I know people say there's no right or wrong way to meditate, but obviously if you're completely new to it, it can be useful to start off with guided meditations. And there's so many on YouTube that you can put on. It really helps you to relax. Like, if you want to do this for anything and you just want to try it, I would say to try and listen to something before going to bed, and you'll fall asleep so quickly.
Another question that we have is what happens when we're on the verge of giving up, and even though we're already getting help, what can we do to kind of preserve our strength? I'm sorry, I'm just kind of paraphrasing.
Okay. Yeah. It seems like a really difficult place to be, and it takes a lot of strength and perseverance. But I think what's coming to my mind with this question at the moment is reminding ourselves of like why, like having a kind of purpose for either us being here in the first place, but also just in our day. And some of this can come through doing work around values and really starting to go on a bit of a journey of kind of self-discovery and okay, what is important to me in how I live my life, like what sort of things do I value. Then our day becomes more meaningful when we're able to do things during our day that align with our values. But yeah, there's something around purpose with that, and that's it's a huge it's a huge thing to take on.
And thank you for highlighting that. Sometimes we forget what our own values are, like what are the things that we find meaningful in our lives and what gives us purpose. And I think once we start exploring it, it can really change the way we look at life and we look at our day. So thank you for sharing that and for highlighting that. We are at the end of our session, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, Dr. Nadia, for coming on board and really sharing all these fantastic tips and advice on how we should reconstruct our conversations about mental health in Islam, how we should be more kind, more compassionate, be better friends to our loved ones. And I take away lots of advice that you've given. I'm definitely going to be downloading Headspace and Sabr. I'm going to be joining you on your journaling course, inshallah. Any last words for the viewers who are here?
Yeah, and I guess I would say that obviously our discussion today, like we've gone a bit more into depth with some things, but there's a lot of things that we've just touched the surface with. So, I mean, there's so many. Yeah, I appreciate the questions that came in as well, and obviously I was only kind of able to give a 30-second or so a reply to that. But these things are like definitely do your own research and maybe speak to more people as well if you still have questions or are a bit unsure of things. And yeah, thank you for tuning in and listening, because it shows that you're all open to this topic and to changing something and maybe getting support as well.
And just to let the viewers know, if you want to speak to Dr. Nadia, because she is a accredited and you're an experienced psychologist, you can reach out to her on Instagram. I mean, I've kind of messaged her through there, and it's at spiritual.psychologist. But Dr. Nadia, is there any other ways that the viewers can reach out to you, that they can contact you if they're struggling or if they just want a safe space to speak to you?
Yeah. So you can email me. I mean, Instagram is okay as well. I would probably just redirect people to my emails anyway. But my email address is nadia@spiritualpsychologist.co.uk. So that would probably be the best way to get in touch. And yeah, I will obviously reply to that.
Inshallah, what I'll do after this episode finishes, I'll write in the comment if anyone wants to seek help or you just want to speak to Dr. Nadia, please contact her at nadia@spiritualpsychologist.co.uk.
Yeah,
or Instagram as well, where she'll redirect you back to an email, inshallah. Thank you so much, really, Dr. Nadia, for bringing so much awareness to mental health to our communities. We've had, it's a real privilege to have you on board and to listen to you. Thank you for the viewers for joining us. I hope that you've taken away some real gold nuggets of advice.
And yeah, I would say thank you as well. And I know in Malaysia, if I'm right, it's terima kasih. What they say, I know. So yeah, thank you to everyone who's joined in, and thank you, Sarah, as well, for having me on.
Thank you so much. Terima kasih for coming on, Dr. Nadia. Just to let viewers know that this is one of the programs run by the Sufa Educational Foundation. So if you enjoyed this program, or if you want to if you want to join any of our other programs, please do check out our social media, check out our Facebook, our Instagram, our website for more information. If you like this episode, please do like, and share it. And if you want to come on Sisters Hour, please do reach out to us. Do drop us a message. Do drop us an email and tell us what you want to talk about. And inshallah, we can bring that to life and we can have you on as a guest. But for now, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. For listening. I hope everybody has a great day. Have a great weekend. And inshallah, we will see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.